Jordan Poole, of course, being heavily criticized this morning for his.
What do you think about the shot?
James, you're shaking your head. It was a pretty deep three with like a lot of time left. You weren't, everyone says Steph. You weren't going to get the ball to Steph. Like Steph was getting trapped. You probably weren't getting the ball back to him. Yeah, I don't hate it. Like I don't hate it. I feel like you had enough time to do a little bit more, but
Jordan Poole,
he was open.
If I have it correctly, man hit 6 threes yesterday, didn't
he? I don't. Did he hit that many?
Because I thought I heard the stat was that was the first time a team had 3 players hit 6 threes and lose.
That's
the
right.
game.
Yeah.
So I mean, and people talk about how deep it was. I mean, that's the way they shoot the threes. Like it was a wide open look. It was a good look. I don't have a huge problem with it. I understand why some people don't like the shot. Channing Frye didn't like the shot. I understand it, but I also see Tyrese's point of view. Like he's wide open.
Yeah.
And that's a shot that he makes. What do you think, James?
You had to try to get the ball back to Steph.
I just don't think you could have. I think you probably create more problems if you try to get the ball back to Steph.
I don't know. I just, like I said early on, like Malik Monk is who Jordan Poole thinks he is. Like he's
Jordan Poole's good. Like
he's
a
erratic.
good ball player.
I don't know.
He's a good ball player.
Jordan Poole is good.
He doesn't play any defense at all.
Well,
there's a lot of people in the
welcome
league
to the
NBA. Anthony Simons doesn't play any defense. But he's making
I'll take Anthony Simons every single day of the week over Jordan Poole.
I mean, that didn't get you nowhere. If you're Portland, you can take him all you want. That didn't get you nowhere.
No, it's true.
You know what I mean? Like he's, and I love Anthony Simons, right? I think Anthony Simons is a dope ball player. I think Jordan Poole is a good ball player. I think he's in a tough situation.
I think he is in a very difficult situation.
I understand that too. He is playing behind 2 legends, but it's pretty simple. Like you go out on the court and you have a green light. Like you got to take good shots. You can't. I just think he's erratic. I think he flops way too much. I don't think he plays defense.
He's being taught by the best.
Man, did you see Steph try to get that late 3-point foul?
The chase down one? The one where LeBron missed the chase down?
Yeah. I think so. I don't know. That was a fun game. At some point, I don't know if you're a Kings fan. I think at this point you don't like either team. The long lineage of hatred for the Lakers, and then when it comes to the Warriors, they're the team just knocked you out. But if I'm Kings fans, I'm kind of pulling. I know this sounds sacrilegious. I'm kind of pulling for the Lakers.
Ain't no kind of about it,
because you want to show that you're a team that took the wind out of the sails of the Golden State Warriors. That you pushed them to the brink, and it hurt them for the next round. And maybe the reason they lose in the next round is because you pushed them so far.
Yeah, that's a lot. Or maybe just the Lakers are better. The one thing I will say, you talk about Kings fans, because we did an impromptu poll earlier, and you could text Mike Brown and ask him, hey, Mike, do you feel better watching Kevon Looney pull down 23 freaking rebounds yesterday against the Los Angeles Lakers? Because I'm pretty sure it was unanimous with us in the chatty house that, yep, we feel a whole lot better after watching what Kevon, because the whole thing with the Lakers is size, length, all of that stuff. And yet Kevon Looney, 23 rebounds yesterday, 7 offensive.
Whew,
the crazy thing, too, is if you think about it, the way he got so many of those rebounds against the Kings were long rebounds. Well, the Lakers aren't shooting any threes. I mean, they don't hit any, but they aren't a good 3-point shooting team that takes a bunch of threes. So there isn't as many long rebounds.
They only shot 25 last night in comparison to the 53 that the Golden State Warriors.
7
Make it
offensive
rain.
rebounds last night as well.
Oh, yeah.
Kevon Looney is in a zone right now on the boards.
As they were trying to fight their way back into the game late, it was the same exact thing that happened in Game 7, one offensive rebound after another. I mean, there was a point where Wiggins had back-to-back offensive rebounds. They're just a really.
They didn't score on that possession when he got those two offensive. Yeah, they didn't score on that particular possession. They didn't score on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like what happened in the third quarter that they didn't. The reason there were so many offensive rebounds in the third quarter is because the Warriors missed so many shots. I mean, Wiggins was 0 for 7 in that third quarter against the Kings in Game 7. And so, like, there's a lot of reasons why the Kings fell. But I think we're seeing some of that play out in the next round, too, where you're seeing some of the traits that the Warriors have that make them difficult, make them one of the most difficult matchup teams you're ever going to face, just because they have random players. They don't have some standard offense that you can try to slow down. They've got random players that can do big things, and they did it. I mean, like that Looney rebounding performance is just nuts.
It's incredible.
And it's been every single game. It seems like I think he's had one game under 20 rebounds out of the last 4.
Yeah,
last 5.
I mean, he's played 8 games, so that's half of them have been 20 rebound games.
Yeah.
Wilt, like Kevon Chamberlain, like what are we doing right now? It's crazy.
I looked at that game last night and I said the Warriors are in trouble. They're in trouble.
So I'll say this, and this is an NBA evaluation, not like shade or anything regarding the Kings. The Warriors have lost their last 2 home games, counting Game 6 and Game 1. They've lost their last 2 home games. They were borderline untouchable at home. Now they've lost their last 2. Like that has to sit in their psyche a little bit. Like that's tough.
Yeah. And the reason why I say they're in trouble is number one, and this is no shade as well. With all due respect to my man, you guys know 10, that's my guy. AD ain't Sabonis. You try that same defense on AD, he gonna average 30 and 20 for the series. Like you try and give him the little 12-footer, 15-footer, he will drain that religiously. So he not. They're going to have to switch that up. And then the other thing is, where is he? 21 threes last night. 21 threes.
Yep.
And lost.
Yep. That's all they took.
Lost.
Yep.
And
6 free throws.
6 free throws. Shot 53 threes.
Free throws.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
they weren't trying to do anything else.
Yeah. Also, you bring up AD, and you just know that there's going to be 2 or 3 games in this series where he just doesn't show up at all. Where you're like, what? Like there always is though. Like for as good as he is, there are games where he just vanishes completely, and that team cannot afford for him to vanish. And the other thing is, while Sabonis was able to be limited by the Warriors, it really comes down to just the style of defender. Like I don't think the Warriors have a player that can defend specifically the style that is Anthony Davis, where they do when it comes to Sabonis. Like Looney is a really, really strong positional defender, and that's not what Davis is. He's not going to go chase Davis all over the place. It's just a different style of player, and so we can't really compare what Anthony Davis will do in this series versus what Sabonis will do in the last series, because they're just completely like polar opposites as far as players.
Anthony Davis, Jesse kind of brought it up. I'm gonna paraphrase what Jesse said in like our group text yesterday. But if Anthony Davis is back to being that guy, the Lakers might win the championship.
Yeah,
they might.
Like the team is good enough. This is why Danny Ainge should be investigated. Danny Ainge needs to be investigated for what he did at the trade deadline with the Los Angeles Lakers, because this team is legit. And if that's Anthony Davis, 1, they could win a championship next year. 2, they're going to be a problem next season. A big problem next season in the Western Conference.
Absolutely. They're going to be back up there in the top 6 at least.
Maybe. I mean, LeBron is going to be what, 40?
39.
39. Okay. Yeah. And AD is still made of glass. He's still going to play 52 games.
But the team's better though. That's the thing. Unlike when Anthony Davis was out before, which and I'll play along with that because it's fair. Unlike when Anthony Davis, this team is better. What's D'Angelo Russell's status? Is he around next year?
He's a free agent.
Okay.
Or maybe a player option, but he wants to stay in LA.
I'm
and
sure
I think
he does.
he's great for.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
I think they need to bring him back.
He's perfect. Yeah, he's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, if you take AD and LeBron off that team, like, while I like the pieces that they brought in, that's a 25 to 30 win team. Like, those guys, they're not good enough. So the fact that they have those two pieces makes it easier to bring in players, but there are so many other rosters that I would rather have around superstars like that. And the fact that they still don't have enough shooting, they still don't they still need more without any question. And they have like very little cap space to do anything. It makes it really difficult.
Enter
I'm
Kyrie Irving.
I was wrong about, maybe I am. I thought they have like $30 million in cap space.
How much?
That doesn't seem possible.
Because
they were over the cap with Steph. I mean, with Steph, they were over the cap with Russ.
They're 107 million because
is somebody coming off the books?
Yeah, D'Angelo Russell's coming off the books.
Yeah, so that's
D'Angelo
and 20 something million right there.
Lonnie Walker's coming off the books. Rui Hachimura has a qualifying offer of 8.5. So that's the problem that they have. Like, their salary cap space, it really doesn't mean anything because Rui's going to want 15 million.
Unless you don't bring him back.
Yeah, but that doesn't free up cap space though, right?
That's the problem that they have. Like, they still have 107 million bucks on the books for next year's salary cap. I think goes up to, is it 132 this year? So it's going to go up to like 139 or 140.
That's $30 million.
Yeah,
because I remember that was the whole thing.
That's
why they thought Kyrie was coming there, because before they kind of squashed all that, just saying it's not a fit. But they were able to make all those moves, and still they were like, oh, they made all these moves, and they still got cap space to go get them Kyrie this offseason.
They wouldn't be able to sign anyone else.
So the cap for next year is 130. Yeah, the cap for next year is 134. Yeah, I mean, and the salary cap is much more complicated than it looks like. You have 30 million bucks. Like, a mid-level exception eats like 11 million of that. So, and in order to, I mean, you have to waive the mid-level exception to get that money back. And then you have minimum roster spots, and the minimum roster spot now in the NBA is up to a little over 1 million. So if you only have 5 players under contract, you have to have a minimum of 13, which means another 8 roster spots at $1 million. So that's $8 million bucks of that salary cap space is gone. So it is like slightly more complicated.
I hear you. I just, but I do think the Warriors are in trouble. That game last night, it showed that they're not going to be able to. They're going to go up against a front line that's going to rebound and finish in the paint. The guys like Schroeder, guys like D'Angelo Russell, LeBron James, they're going to attack the basket and take advantage of the lack of rim protection that the Warriors have. And I look at that situation. I know he's 38 or whatever the case may be, but just like we talk about, Steph is going to have a 40-point game. LeBron going to have his game. LeBron going to have his, he probably going to have 2 where he goes for 38 and 13. Like, he going to have 2 like that. And that's why it was so important for them to get that win, because you got that win last night. I know AD had a great game, but you got that win without LeBron going crazy and weathering the 20-point to 21 3-pointers from the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors just don't have enough guys they can rely on right now. It's, Jesse said it a while ago, it kind of is Steph and some dudes. Like, it's Steph, and like last night Clay was good, but he was 4-19 in game 7. Last night Jordan Poole was good, but they were ready to cut him in the middle of the Kings series.
Like Clay got 25 on 25.
There's that too.
Like, the 1-to-1 ratio to me doesn't scream
I'm cooking.
Yeah, like it's just not it. But that was just the nature of that game last night. For them, it's like they weren't going to challenge. They weren't going to challenge the Lakers bigs. They were content shooting threes and trying to win that way.
James, you think the foul thing was a little too crazy? The free throw shooting? I don't think so.
They
they didn't do anything.
Yeah,
like they didn't draw fouls.
Right.
They don't have anyone that can go on the post and go get fouls.
That too.
I mean, they don't even have a guy
29-6, by the way, for those that didn't. It's 29-6.
That is jarring to see.
But press my Doc Rivers button.
I wish you'd tell the whole story.
There's a story behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like they don't have a guy like Monk that attacks the rim. They don't have a guy like Fox who attacks the rim. They don't even have a guy like Harrison Barnes who can go and get free throws when they need them. And you need them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that team, if anything, they need guys getting to the free throw line to save their legs, because free throws like stops the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It gets you a chance to catch your breath. And that team, I mean, they played on Sunday. They look like
they played Sunday.
Yeah, that just played.
Yeah.
They didn't have fresh legs at all. So
I agree.
1-0 Los Angeles.
It's gonna be a really good series, though. It's gonna be a really entertaining series.
Yeah, that was entertaining as hell last night.
I see games like that all throughout the series, regardless of how long it lasts. I think it's gonna be tight. Because the Lakers aren't. I talk about the Lakers and like how the Lakers aren't perfect. Like they got some holes. They're old. You know, they got some questions every now and then too. So I think it's gonna make for a compelling series.
30, 23, 5, and 4. Those were the numbers from Anthony Davis last night.
He was amazing last night.
I had him in fantasy basketball this year, and when he plays, my goodness, he puts up stats. Because it's not just that; it's usually with like 5 or 6 assists. Then he gets like 3 or 4 blocks, and then he gets a steal and a half. Like all of the stats across the board that he puts up are really, really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, you just can't rely on him. And you know, when you have a veteran like LeBron who is going to have to sit games. I mean, he's missed a bunch of games in each of the last couple of years. That's always a problem. Like, how do you manage the minutes for one guy when your young 30-something guy can't stay on the court in AD?
And look, we talk about Anthony Davis and what he was able to do. Like you said, 30 points, 23 rebounds, 5 assists. We talked about Kevon Looney and what he was able to do. 10 points, 23 rebounds, 7 of them offensively. I mean, this stat line right here, 6 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds.
How do you do this? What are you doing?
Oh, and one, you forgot the other stat. No, 1 technical foul, but you also forgot the other stat. 1 podcast.
Oh, you got his podcast in.
Hey, good for you.
You got his podcast.
Triple single season.
What he did not get was a handshake and was bitter. No handshake for you. No soup for you. Yeah.
Oh man, you know how to take a shot at Draymond. It's all good, man. He all right, man. He all right.
Let's I want to
shift
shift
gears
gears
yesterday, but he all right.
He was.
Yeah.
And didn't get thrown out. Incredible.
Not at all.
Let's shift gears. You obviously just came from the Monty McNair press conference. We want to talk about that. We've been throwing names all over the place. And the Sacramento Kings have the second best betting odds to land Dillon Brooks. Let's talk about all of that when D-Lo and KC, brought to you by Sky River Casino, returns here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Sorry, I didn't think there was a point in getting into the conversation, so let's get out early and start over.
Ew.
Second best betting odds. Yeah, I don't know.
You guys bust into those fries.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I got to get this juice. I got to drink this juice. Get this juice in, and then
wheeze in the juice.
Oh, I just swallowed a whole piece of ginger. That was tough.
I like ginger. I've grown ginger in my garden. You go get a ginger root.
How does it grow? Does it really just grow in those giant blocks?
Yeah, so you get the ginger root.
Uh-huh.
And you get one with a bunch of like the little nubs on them. And you have those facing up, and you put it about, I think, an inch down into a pot. And then it will grow more of those. So first of all, it'll sprout up and you'll get like big, like it's actually really a pretty looking plant. Like almost like a plant that you would have as a house plant. Like, and then it starts extending out and making more of those like nodules. And then you can like take the whole thing out. Once the greenery dies down, you can pull it out and then, store it, chop it up, do whatever you want.
Smack it up, flip it, rub it down.
Yeah. Another thing that's fun to grow is potatoes. It sounds really strange, but you can grow potatoes and they make like a bunch of little potatoes.
That would be fun. I want to learn how to grow.
Oh, Armando says he's growing potatoes right now. I grow a ton of tomatoes. A ton of...
Oh, you said tomatoes.
No, potatoes.
Oh, potatoes.
Yeah, but I also grow a ton of... No, I'm okay. I had lunch. Yeah. During the growing season, like I got to go drop them in right now. We've had such cold weather, all these frozen nights that you can't plant anything. So I'm ready to go buy my tomato plants today or tomorrow.
Yeah, what kind of potatoes do you grow?
Like potatoes, I'll grow like Yukon Golds. I'll grow like the little baby reds. And I do them in 5-gallon buckets.
Potatoes. Red potatoes are so good.
Yeah, you can do them all in like 5-gallon buckets.
Potatoes like the most versatile vegetable.
I don't think it's considered a vegetable.
No,
isn't it? Because it grows out of the ground.
Tomatoes, aren't those fruits?
And tomatoes are fruit.
Yeah.
Potato is, I think it's
starch.
It's a starch, but I think it's a is it a root?
I don't know. Maybe it is a potato. I mean a vegetable. But to answer your question, yes.
Matt Kim
I'd
says
argue potatoes the goat.
It's a tuber. That makes sense.
What the hell is a tuber?
Maybe it's a tumor.
Like a root, like
it's
a
not
root plant.
Tumor.
It's not a tumor. Yeah. The other thing that grows really well at my house is pickling cucumbers. And my wife actually ferments them and will make fermented pickles. Well, fermented cucumbers, which are sort of like if you go to like a Jewish deli and get a pickle there, they're fermented. They're not like pickled. They're not put in what am I drawing a blank? Vinegar. There we go.
Lord is my shepherd. You know what I want.
Just 2 dope boys in the Cadillac.
Oh, man. All right, here we go. Live on the Odyssey app, live on twitch.tv/ESPN1320, youtube.com/ESPN1320. Steeler and KC brought to you by Sky River Casino with 17 different restaurants and bars to choose from. Sky River Casino has something for everyone, from casual quick bites in the market at Sky River to fine dining at SR Prime. Go in, ask for the KC booth. They'll get you set up real nice there in SR Prime. Of course, if it's a night that Kenny's not there, they'll get you set up in the KC booth. James Ham, kind enough to join us following his visit with Monty McNair, the NBA Executive of the Year, Monty McNair. James, what were your takeaways from the press conference? We did play the opening statement. He just gave praise to, and it was a long list of accolades for the Sacramento Kings here this season. And I saw one particular quote that you put out that I really liked, that I don't even think we read on the air yet, but it was something along the lines of, 48 wins was really good for us, but we know next year we've got to be better.
Yeah, I think he was really, like he said, a playoff team that expects to go to the second round, the third round. You got to win in the 50s. Like if you want to be a team that's growing, you got to get into the 50s, like sometimes the mid 50s. A top 3 seed is usually 54, 55 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows he's got work to do to get there. Slater asked him very specifically about Domantas Sabonis and about a potential extension this summer. And he's like, look, this is a guy we want to build around. So yeah, we're going to do everything we can to keep him. And that doesn't mean that they'll get an extension done this season. It's very complicated. But then he also asked him about Harrison Barnes, and Monty skipped straight to we've got a lot of decisions to make this summer.
Yeah, no.
But it's all fresh. It's all new. It just happened. So we've got to figure out what we're going to do moving forward. Pretty good sidestep.
Monty's good at that.
Yeah, I think that's,
understandable, by the way. He's not. No, we're not really interested in Harrison next year. Like,
by any means necessary.
Oh God.
Yeah, I think if we
under no circumstance,
we look at how Monty was last year at this time, and Monty fell on his sword and really said, I have to be better. I did not put the roster together. I did not put this structure together here to make this team good enough. And this year, this is a guy that 3 months ago didn't have a contract.
Yeah.
I think that's what's forgotten. I asked him about it,
crazy.
It's and he's like, yeah, we're really happy. As a family, we're really happy. We're glad we're going to be here. We're, my kids, my wife, everyone's really happy that they bought a house. They'd never bought a house before. He said in Houston, they lived in 8 different rental houses in 9 years. And so they're putting down roots, and that's good. That's what you want. And even I've talked to Wes Wilcox. We talked to Monty a little bit about Wes too. I get the feeling that Wes doesn't want to go anywhere either. Wes is a guy who's rebuilt, his cachet around the league with this job, but he really likes this job. And his kids are a certain age where uprooting your kids when they're 10, 11 years old, that's really tough. If you find stability, if you find a place where you can win, why not see it through? Why not see if you can put together 6-8 years of playoffs here, or something even crazier where you're starting to build something? I think a lot of these guys are looking at this job a lot differently than they did 3 years ago, and certainly a lot differently than they did even 3 months ago. Now this is home. They found success. Now let's see what we can build on it. And I thought that was really cool to see Monty be able to go from a guy who, again, really took last season hard, to a guy that didn't have a job lined up after 3 months ago. He had nothing lined up. The Kings hadn't extended him yet, to where he is now as the executive of the year and reaping all of the benefits of coach of the year and 2 All-Stars and clutch player of the year and all rookie selection and probably 2 all NBA selections. You got 2 guys that finished in the top 11 in MVP balloting.
Mm-hmm.
That means that those guys probably got those same votes from the media that will be required to be an all-league player. So 2nd team all-league for Sabonis, maybe. 3rd team all NBA for Fox, very possible. That's crazy. Right. So where this team was a year ago to where they are today is just night and day.
I got thrown off again by the game that I'm watching. This background is just wow, bro. Wow.
At some point, you're going to have to show the people on the stream what you're watching. It is just, It is an incredible sight. There are flags. Did you see it?
No.
Can you show?
Let me see. Because they just had a perfect view, and it was like, bro, what are we doing?
Kenny's watching.
I'm watching EuroLeague, right? I'm watching EuroLeague playoffs. And there, let me pause it right now.
Is it from earlier today?
Well, I went all the way back. So I'm last week or something like that.
Okay.
But it's Real Madrid, right? And it's very festive. It's the playoffs, and everybody's ready to go. And they handed out flags, right? They handed out white flags.
They're white flags.
The team is wearing white, so they're wearing white flags. And I think what I found out is when somebody has the flag, it's cool. But when there's nobody in the seat, the flag sits in the middle of the seat. Like how if nobody was there to pick up their t-shirt for the Kings, the t-shirt would sit over the seat, right?
Okay.
Well, the flag sits in the seat and it just sits straight up. And so you kind of look at it and, well, James, just tell me what you see, James. Tell me what you see here. What does this look like to you?
Jesus.
What does this look like to you?
We got ourselves a bona fide clan meeting.
if you guys can see it here. Here's the pause here.
Oh,
That's what it looks like.
That's a bona fide clan meeting.
it is so bad.
What in the world?
Oh,
You know, the worst would be if, like you're at the Kings game when something like that, where they blow the flames up. It'd be like, what is happening? Like, what is happening?
Oh, it's so
What's
bad.
the flames? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, man. So I just saw another angle. I said, there it goes again.
Oh,
Jeez.
There
It looked like the crowd had filed in, and I didn't see it as much, but it was just halftime. So I guess they were trying to get back to their seats. And
You gotta screenshot. You gotta
Wow.
and post that picture so people can see it on Twitter for those that aren't watching.
I'm gonna get to it.
It
It's
is
wild.
That
It's
is
wild.
flat out
Stunning.
crazy.
It is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So-
I didn't get to watch any of the EuroLeague today, but
Yeah,
I saw
Sasha play today, right?
Sasha hit a laser from like 28 feet from the top of the key.
Mm.
He's just an incredible shooter. I don't know if they won or not, but my goodness, huge performance there. And it's looking more and more likely like the
Did
Kings
he
are gonna
come
do
up
the full-
today?
Yeah, he did. He was non-committal, like he was.
Of course.
Monty was non-committal.
You know,
Like, yeah, we really like him, and we're watching him in the playoffs right now. But like, look, they're going to do a full court press on him. What they have to pay for him, I don't think they know yet. What like the ballpark figure is, but
And that's to get him out of there and to pay him, right?
yeah. Well, okay, so but per league rules, there's a cap on how much you can
Right.
spend on a guy. Last year was 950,000, which Sasha's buyout was actually much less than that a team can give to the EuroLeague team to buy him out. It'll probably go up to like 1.1 million or 1.05 million this year of what a team can extend. And then anything over that amount, he's got to pay himself. So if he did something crazy, silly, like did a $2 million buyout or a $2.5 million buyout, then he's going to have to come up with the other money. And now he can pay that out of the salary the Kings give him, but the Kings can't pay it themselves. And so it's going to cost to get him out of there. And it's something that he knew when he signed an extension this summer. Like during the season, he signed an extension. But it still has NBA outs, and everything I'm feeling and hearing from the team is that they want him here, whether that's $4 million a year or they've got to eat into their cap space and do something like $6 million a year. They're gonna have to figure that one out. And then we talked on Monday about Trey Lyles, right, in his contract.
Yeah.
I actually went back and looked at his numbers. Trey Lyles is he's an early bird guy, a lot like the way that Rashawn Holmes was. And so while the Kings can't use his true Larry Bird rights to give him any salary that they want, they can do is the early bird is 175% of your current salary. So if you have a player who makes like 10 million, you could give him like 17.5, right? Or if whatever's more, you can give him also the league average salary, which is around 11 million bucks now. So you can go up to that figure, and it can be taken care of after you sign all your other players. So Trey Lyles has like a $3.6 million cap hold, which is really, really small. And that's because he only made like 2.6 million last year. Right. So the Kings can let that $3.6 million cap hold sit there, and it eats up some of their cap space. But then they can wait until after they do all of their other things, and then they can come back to Trey and negotiate a salary for him. Or they can negotiate it like so they have an idea of what they're both looking at and whether it's going to work. They can do that before, but they don't sign a contract. They wait until after they go into free agency and do all their other things. Then they can come back to Trey and they can go over the top of the salary cap to retain him. So I don't think he's getting $11 million, but they have that room. They can go all the way up to that league average salary. So you could see Trey get maybe like a 3-year 18 or 3-year 15 or 3-year 21. I don't know what the Kings are thinking in their head or what Trey Lyles is thinking he's worth in his head, but it still gives you that option that you can bring him back and go over the cap to do it. Because again, a $3.6 million salary really isn't that much, like as far as a cap hold.
Yeah. And that's good news that they're able to do that. I don't want to say at any time, but they don't have to rush out the first day of free agency and make that happen. Possibly they could talk to Trey and be like, hey, Well, they're not supposed to. But,
Well, no,
I think they can.
oh,
right?
well, they can
he's their own
because he's your
Yeah.
player.
He's your player.
Yeah.
That's right. They can talk to him and say, hey, we're going to take care of you. This is what we're going to give you. Let us build the roster up, and we're going to come back and get you on the back end. Because we got the money to do it.
Exactly.
We're available to do it. It's just, this is a quirk within the CBA where let us
work the
handle this
system.
first
Yeah.
and then come back and get you that way. So
Yeah.
it's good that they have that.
Even with PJ Dozier, the Kings signed him to a 2-year deal when they signed him a couple of months ago, like after his 210 days, and they brought him back. It's a non-guaranteed deal, but it's non-guaranteed up to July 10th. And then on July 10th, they have to make a decision on how much they would guarantee. Like there will be it might be guaranteed for 100,000 at that point, and if he makes a roster, but up until July 10th, it's non-guaranteed. So they can go out on the open market and do all kinds of other things and assess where they are at after free agency, the first 10 days of free agency, and then come back to PJ and say, okay, look, this is going to be tough to fit you in, or you're still part of what we're trying to do here. And in the meantime, you can keep him in Sacramento all summer long, working out with the guys or staying around. If he wants to be here in the gym, if he wants to use your facilities, he can. He's not a guy who's on the outside looking in.
In that same respect, what's the deal with Kessler Edwards?
Kessler Edwards has a team option for league minimum, basically. Okay. So for Kessler, there's almost no way he's not back. I mean, you have a lively body. You have to fill out 15 roster spots. And we can go back to what we were talking about earlier, where you have cap holds, right? For minimum contracts, and league minimum contract might be like $1 million or $1.2 million this next year. Well, you already have that cap space. Like, even if you don't have Kessler, you still have to have a cap hold for his amount almost. Like it's a little bit over, like $500,000 over, but not enough to make it not worth keeping him. Right. He's young. What is he? 22 years old. And he has all the physical attributes that you want, all the physical attributes that we saw from KZ Okpala. Like the Kings need more of those guys. It's just whether you can bring in better versions of that, and you can worry about that down the road as well.
Yeah.
You're listening to D'Lo and Casey on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM, KRX QHD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, always live on the free Odyssey app, live in visual form on twitch.tv/ESPN 1320 or youtube.com/ESPN 1320. We're happy to have our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, here with us. Well, I saw this morning that the Sacramento Kings have the second best odds to land free agent extraordinaire Dillon Brooks. The only team with better odds to land Dillon Brooks right now, the Dallas Mavericks. Top 5 teams they listed: Dallas, Sacramento, Portland, Houston, and Minnesota. Shams also reported that there will, in fact, be a market for Dillon Brooks. Based on some work that he's done, there are going to be teams that are interested in him. James, how do you feel about Dillon Brooks?
Hard pass. I think there are guys out there that have that little bit of crazy in them, to have that toughness that you want. Like the Kings need more of that, but there are guys that just fit what the Kings do better. Like he prefers ISO. He takes bad shots. He's not a system player. He's physical. He's okay defensively. He's not great anymore. I think he's slowed down a little bit on that. But I also think when you have a player who's outwardly saying, like they're putting it out there, the next stop he's looking for, he wants to be more than a 3-and-D guy. It's like, oh yeah, like no. Not at all. Like that's not what you're looking for that's not who the Kings are looking for, in my opinion. Like maybe they end up landing on that, but that would be a tough, I don't know where you even start. Like, is he possibly a mid-level exception guy? Maybe, but
doesn't sound like that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Like you always say, they can look.
You can look for whatever you want. That's right.
The market will dictate what you're going to get. I'm pretty sure I agree, James. But I'm not. I don't feel like no way, quote unquote, under no circumstances would I not want Dillon Brooks. there are about 4, 5, maybe even 6 guys and 6 scenarios that I would take before Dillon Brooks, but he's on the list for me. And part of that is if you're able to have a conversation with him and lay out the expectations and what his role would be very clearly, and he agrees to that, and the money's looking right, and once again, your other 5 options fell through. I think because I think at his core, just as a basketball player, I feel like he kind of lost his way a little bit.
Yeah.
But when I liked Dillon Brooks, he was a hard-nosed defender. He was an opportunistic scorer.
Can Mike get that back?
That's the other thing. You have the coach and you've got the locker room and that coaching staff. Maybe they can get to him on a different level and bring him back to that spot. And if he gets to that spot, I think that's what this team would need. Everybody said that's what this team would need. A tough, gritty, versatile perimeter defender. He could be that.
Okay, so first of all, like he's a 41.6% career field goal shooter, not 3-point, 41.6. This last year that we just finished, 39.6. He's a career 34.2, but he shot 30.9% last year and 32.6 this year.
This was the worst career season of his
Yeah.
career. He was bad this year.
He also
he's been trending down too.
Yeah, and last year he averaged 18.4 points. Like, I don't think he's an elite defender. I think he is physical. He is someone who will rough you up. But my point would be that, like, if I'm going to gamble on somebody, I'm going to look at a guy like Kelly Oubre who gives you something different, right? Who might be a little crazy, but
he's a different kind of crazy too. These two, him and Dillon Brooks aren't the same kind of crazy. Right. There's levels to this craziness. All crazies in the NBA. Are not crazy. Yeah. Kelly's a little bit different.
Well, that, and again, they're both 27 years old. And then when I look at Kelly's stats, I don't love the 43.1% shooter or the 31.9% from 3, but that's because he was asked to be a bulk shooter on a bad team. Last year, 15 points per game. The season before that, 15.4. These are the types of stats that, you're kind of hoping for, the 34.5% from 3. He's super athletic. He would really give you an attitude and an edge that you don't have, but the length and athleticism that Dillon Brooks just doesn't have. And the Kings, if I'm looking at this roster, that's the one thing they need so badly is the length and athleticism. They just lack it. And so Oubre, the other thing I'll point out too is that Kelly Oubre played AAU ball with De'Aaron Fox. They've been friends since they're very young. They've known each other like since freshman year of high school for De'Aaron Fox. If there's anyone that can get through to somebody and say, look, what you're doing is not okay, or you need to pull it back, or whatever it is, he's the type of guy that, Fox as a leader on the club can say, look, man, you're my friend, but I'm not going to put up with that on my team, where I don't think that Dillon Brooks is going to listen in the same way that I think that a guy like Oubre that has ties to him. So again, if I'm making a gamble on a player like that, I would take Oubre every step of the way because I think he fits better. I think his defense is better. I think his athleticism is better. Like his ability to get out and run is better. And I also think that he would listen and play within the team concept, and he would listen to Monk as well because Monk and De'Aaron are so close, and you could really have some sort of like really nice pairing between all these guys. But you need that athlete on this team.
And you agree with that, right?
Yeah, like, Kelly's above Dillon on my list for sure.
Yeah, he's one of the 5 guys above that you're going to take.
Yeah, and like I said, but that's kind of what I said. There are people that I would rather have as opposed to Dillon Brooks, but I'm different in, everybody else's assessment. And like, if you couldn't get any of those options to work out and you were like, well, let's give Dillon Brooks a look. I'm willing to give Dillon Brooks a look. I'm willing to give him a look. There's just other better options, I think, but I'm not. I think a lot of people.
We call Dillon Brooks on the 3rd day of free agency.
We did the poll. Everybody's like, don't even think about it.
It was 80. It was 80% of GTFOH. Yeah,
I'm not there.
I need him to be in 500 times better shape. I look at him and I'm like, okay, man, you've gone the way of like Jared Dudley. Like you got to come in and not be soft, like physically. like what we saw on this team, and like Will Z put out some really cool stats this morning on Kevin Herter, right? Like he'd ran like what was it, 70, 100, 121 miles or something. It was something crazy as far as like how far Kevin Herter had run. And some contrarian fans like, oh, that's only 0.15 of a mile per game more. And it's like, okay, man, like that's a lot. That's a lot. We're asking you to do like 7% more running than any other time in your career. And that adds up over 82 games. That's so I think I'll be honest, like Kevin Herter has to come in better shape because I thought that Kevin Herter struggled on the second night of back-to-backs. I thought he struggled on the fourth night of 3 games in 4 nights. That's something that he lost his legs multiple times during the season. He's too good of a shooter to have, 1 month where he shoots 25% or 28% and another where he shoots 56%. And somehow you end up at 41%, but the way you got there is unacceptable. And I think Herter knows that. And I think he's going to work hard to get in the right shape because Mike Brown has talked about it all season long. It's not just that players are being asked to do something different. It's that their roles, like the importance of their roles is different. So if Kevin Herter plays 30 minutes on 2 different teams, and you look at how he plays 30 minutes on the Atlanta Hawks, and you look how he plays 30 minutes on the Sacramento Kings, he ran so much more. And his role, the gravity of who he was so much more important. Because when you're playing next to Trae Young, sure, they're going to defend you on the 3-point line, but they're not going to be as concerned with you at the 3-point line as they are when you're playing with another 3-point shooter. When you're playing with a draw-and kick guy and a big man like Sabonis, you have to have that spacing. Teams are playing you different. They're making sure that they take away your 3-point shot because you're one of the things that can really hurt them. And so I think like a lot of these guys, they're going to reevaluate who they are and how they can help this team going into next season. And one of those guys is Herter. Again, I don't know that he needs to lose weight, but he needs to be in better physical condition to last an 82-game season and to keep a consistency and not have the peaks and valleys that we've seen for both him. And I'll say the same exact thing about Malik Monk. Like somebody needs to take an iron and flatten out the peaks and valleys. Both of those players, they were all so high and so low throughout the season. That's what this was a learning season for them. They now know what 82 games looks like playing for the Sacramento Kings, playing at this pace. The pace is going to pick up next year. This is what you have to do. And if they're going to be successful, those 2 guys very specifically have to be in better shape, have to be ready for the rigors of all 82 and not only all 82 and then hopefully another 28 games.
Yeah. I like that. That's good stuff.
You think conditioning is a primary focus for these guys this offseason?
Yeah, I think conditioning and, the weight room. And I think that's different for everybody. Like Fox, I think is already going to elevate his game to like a completely different level that we haven't seen. I would expect like 27 points a game, like almost at a minimum for him for next season. And that's just because he now knows what it is to be a superstar. He just got a taste of it and everyone is looking at him in a different way.
Yeah.
And he knows it. But these other guys, like Malik is, to me, he's a gym rat. He's not a workout warrior. And I would say Kevin's probably the same. They're guys who spend a lot more time in a gym shooting basketballs and playing hoop than they do in the weight room. And that's not a dig. Like every player is built differently about how they manage that. And you have some guys who all they do is work out and you're like, man, you worked out a ton and your body looks great and you're horrible at basketball. You're just flat out, you're not good at basketball now. And then you have other guys like the complete opposite where Chuck Hayes used to say, oh, well, I played a bunch of tennis this summer. Like, oh, Jesus.
Good job, Chuck. Good job, Chuck.
It's like, okay, I don't know what to tell you, Chuck. That was a poor decision, and now your teammates are paying for it.
Oh, man.
So, there's all of these different types of guys that are in the league that behind closed doors, they're, like Marcus Thornton loved to play basketball. All he did was play basketball. Like when he got done playing with the Kings, like after a game, I'm sure he went out and like dunked on his neighbor's hoops out in the yard. Like he just loved it. Couldn't get him in the gym. So when he got a deep thigh bruise because he hadn't done his legs, he hadn't hit leg day for his whole life. all of a sudden he's out for a month with a deep thigh bruise because he can't shake it off because he doesn't have, that's not who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got these other guys who are in there hitting the gym, work it out. And again, you see like the workout guys, Aaron Aflalo, like, okay, man, are you like LL Cool J? Is that what's happening here? Like, that's what he looked like. He looked like all he did was lift weights all day long. And then
who had the LL Cool J reference today coming from James?
There you
Anybody?
go.
Because if you did, you won.
Everybody tap in on Thursday as James hosts Corners of the Culture. Here.
That's right.
Quarters of the Culture.
You
with
certainly
James
could have me on to talk on Corners of the Culture of rappers turned crime procedural.
Finn Totolo, aka Ice-T.
I mean, we tomorrow's episode is on rappers turn actors.
Oh,
and
see, I could do that all day long.
The egregious name that we didn't mention till like 50 minutes into the podcast is out there for everybody. So that will drop for you tomorrow morning. Then we're talking about the offseason, James, and games changing. You mentioned Domantas Sabonis earlier, finished 7th in MVP voting. Obviously a great year for Domas and De'Aaron. You just laid out what your expectations are for De'Aaron next year. And I do think De'Aaron had such a great line Sunday night following the game when he said, everyone knows who I am now. Like, they know who I am. And we all wanted that for him, right? Like, we all wanted him to be on the stage, and he took advantage of it. He was incredible. Even though the Kings lost in the first round, De'Aaron was absolutely incredible. From Domas's perspective, though, can you see Domantas Sabonis, who now in the last 4 years is a 3-time All-Star, can you see him elevating his game even more?
Okay, so this is like, I think it's really interesting when we talk to coaches, when we talk to players, we talk to front office, like just getting done with the Monty McNair conversation, right? Monty has said it so many times, and it's something that I've heard Vivek say in the past, but like, you need to know who you are, what you're good at, and what you're not, right? That's one of the blessings of life. If you can figure out what you're good at and what you're not, and then you can find people to surround you that complement what it is you're good at and what you're not, then you're much better off for it. So again, I'll just relay it to like when I'm building a house. Like, I can do a lot of things on a house, but what I don't like doing is plumbing. And I'll do electrical all day long. I don't care. But I don't like doing plumbing, so I always bring in a plumber. I can put sheetrock on a wall, but I'm not good at the finished work of taping and texturing. So I bring in a taper and texturer to do that work. There's all these things that I can do, but there's things that I know that I'm not good at and I'm not going to do. I will not put my wife, this kills my wife. For the last 2 years, a year and a half, I've had this bathroom that's been basically, it looks like a closet. There's nothing in it except for bathroom fixtures that are supposed to go in there. We have plenty of bathrooms in our house, but this one is just sitting there because I don't feel comfortable putting a shower pan in because I know that I'm going to cause it to leak and it's going to run through the floor and tear up my ceiling and then ruin the floor below it. And then I'm going to have to do a bunch more work. So I won't put it in. So my point is that, like, there are certain things that I know how to do. There are certain things that Domantas Sabonis knows how to do on a court. You have to, as a GM, as a coach, even as a player, you need to realize what you're good at and what you're not. And then they need to surround him with the pieces to complement him. And I think they did a really good job of it in year one with him on this roster. You surrounded him with shooters and you're surrounded him with an elite off the ball, on ball guard, right? But we saw it from day one. Okay, where's the shot blocker? Where's that other rebounder? I mean, Harrison Barnes disappeared as a rebounder in the playoffs. He disappeared from like the month of January until mid-March as a rebounder, averaging 3 a game. Just stopped doing it. And I don't know why that was. Like, it could have been something structural, but we now know that, like, you have to have a defensive-minded shot blocking 4 or 3 to put alongside Domantas Sabonis. And you heard about it. Like, the Kings tried to get that guy. That guy was Jared Vanderbilt. Jared Vanderbilt. That's who they tried to go get. They understood that that's who they needed, and they whiffed. They didn't get him. So
no, Danny Ainge was in cahoots.
Yes,
exactly. Rob Pelinka. That's what happened.
That dude, man.
Exactly. So to like round it out, though, my point is that Like there are plenty of things that Sabonis can do to get better, but he is who he is. He's a guy who's going to average 18.5 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists. And that's an all-star. And if he does it 3 more times, that's probably a Hall of Famer. And that's perfectly fine. Like, don't ask somebody to be something that they can't be. Where Fox adding 2 points a game, that's not difficult for him. It's sitting right there. He needs to be a better defender. He needs to be this and that. But at the end of the day, you need to surround him with better pieces that can help him get better. You know, like I think, again, Davion Mitchell, perfect. Because Davion Mitchell isn't a guy that has to have major minutes, but he is a guy that behind De'Aaron Fox, if you need someone to shut someone down and needs to be a great defender, he can go do that. When he does come in, he game manages. He doesn't replace Fox. He's totally different than Fox. But if you need someone for 12 to 15 minutes or 18 minutes a game, he's a guy who can come in and play defense and can knock down an open shot sometimes and who doesn't make a bunch of mistakes. So he kind of like holds you in a pattern until Fox can get back out on the court and do what he's doing. And so you need to find those complementary pieces for other positions.
Do you think, because we were trying to figure out exactly, what's next for Domas, do you think that he can improve his game, or has he kind of plateaued? And I ask you that saying, like, I say, hey, every year you put something else in the bag. And, this offseason in the playoffs, they kind of exposed the fact that he wasn't as sure of himself as he should be with that jump shot. Lock yourself in the gym and shoot nothing but 15-foot elbow jump shots, some at the top of the key, and try to perfect that. He already improved a little bit this year. Take another step in that jump shot. Like, do you think he can get better at that stuff, or is maybe that one of the things you're talking about? Be aware of who you are and don't ask you to do too much.
To be honest, I thought this season during the offseason, they worked so hard on the 3-point shot for him. They should have been working on the 18-foot jumper, which they didn't know because you didn't know that this offense would look like this, right? So when you stepped on the court at the beginning of the season, you thought, okay, I think we got some nice pieces. And then all of a sudden this thing like magically goes together. I mean, I told you guys, like, in the second week of the season, all the advanced numbers say that this isn't a top 12 offense. This is a top 1 or 2 offense. And then all of a sudden it proved out. They started, doing exactly that, scoring like they should. So what you did is you got in the middle of a season where everything is working so incredibly well without Domas needing that 3-point shot. Was Domas shooting every day at practice 3-point shots? Yeah, he was. But he wasn't so focused on it like he was in the summer because that was the big need. You got Fox, you got Sabonis. One of those guys is going to have to shoot the 3 ball. Now you surround him with 3-point shooters. But here's the kicker. If you take away a Harrison Barnes and you replace him with a Kelly Oubre and you drop 4 or 5% in 3-point percentage, now maybe you do need Domas to do something different. Maybe he does need to be that 3-point shooter. So it's always going to be a balancing thing that you're trying to figure out what's the best combination. But I also think you can't go away from this for stretches. And I thought the Kings, like, you wanted him to be an 18-foot jump shooter in the playoffs, not even a jump shooter, just an 18-foot flat-footed shooter. But you never worked on that. That wasn't something that was part of your offense the entire season. Going into next year, he needs to watch a bunch of footage of Chris Webber. Remember what Chris Webber was able to do from that, the high post. And he was just like spectacular. He shot 45-50% on that mid-range jump shot, but that set up him to take the ball to the basket. It set up the cutter to have more space. And so, yeah, like, they're learning. This was the first year this offense came together and somehow it magically becomes the number 1 offense we've ever seen. But there's so much more room for growth. And that doesn't mean that they score more points or they become even more and more and more efficient. It just means that they become more difficult to defend. You become more versatile. And that's where we ran into in the playoffs, where they were not versatile enough anymore. Like, the Warriors took away a major piece and said, go ahead and beat us. And the Kings weren't able to beat them.
You mentioned Davion a minute ago. Is there room for growth for Davion? Because we've had, I wouldn't say fun. We've had some time to speculate on Game 6 and Game 7, and we feel like we came to the conclusion of why Mike went away from Davion. But Where do you see his growth at?
He's got to be a better catch and shoot shooter.
Which is, to fill you in, that's why Mike had to go away from him. It felt like in Game 6, because the Warriors were like, you're not going to make that. And they played away from him. They gave him any shot from the corner that he wanted. They gave him any shot from behind the arc that he wanted. And he didn't make them pay for it. I mean, Game 1, I think he was good, but they didn't make him pay for it. He didn't make him pay for it in that series. And that's why he had to go to Terrence Davis and those guys in Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at how they played them. They gave you certain things. They sagged off. I mean, if they don't have to defend you behind the arc, he needs to be a knockdown shooter from 3. And he was in college in his final year, but he wasn't the previous years.
Right.
And like, I know that they've worked with him a ton. I got to be honest, Rico Hines like redefined his shot and had this high arcing thing. I don't love it. I'm not quite sure. Like they tried to, because he's short, they tried to change his release point and make this high arcing thing. I don't think I remember him getting blocked or him taking too much time on a shot. I just thought he didn't hit it. I would like to bring it back down. I would like it to be more of a conventional 3-point shot, because the Kings offense, you don't need that high arcing release. You need to be able to come off a pick, turn and fire. I think the progression for him is probably that he needs to tighten all of that stuff up. And they've got Doug working with him nonstop. Doug worked with him all offseason, but again, Doug is working on finer nuances. Doug's task was to teach him how to play team defense, to teach him how to, like very, very fine nuanced stuff that a lot of players are coming to the league, even a 4-year player like Davion, they just don't have in their bag. And so there's still a lot of work to do. I think he can get better. I'm not ready to give up on Davion Mitchell. I just think that it took him way too long to figure out where he fit into the grand scheme of things. And then when the Warriors started taking things away, like it really did put a bunch of pressure on him to be something different that he's not capable of being right now.
Yeah.
And it felt like he had just gotten in a good groove. Sorry, Casey.
No, you're good. I like Davion. I like his role on this team. I think he's great as a backup point guard. And if things get a little dicey, I'm talking injury-wise, for a game or two, he can step in and be your starting point guard. No issues. I love his role on this team, man. And you look at the numbers, just as traditional per game averages, everything's up. Everything's up. Everything in that respect, saying he is getting better. The only thing that was down was the points per game and the minutes per game. And that's why. But his percentages, at least in the traditional stats, not, the super analytical ones, but they were all higher than they were his rookie year. And I expect this season for them to be higher than they were, or this upcoming season to be higher than they were this past season. I think he's that type of worker. I think he's dedicated to his craft. Ham, I saw the same thing as you. Sometimes I thought he just shot the ball a little too high. I'd like for him to just kind of get it there and let it be a little natural, and that's something that he may work on. But I like Davion. I think he's going to continue to get better.
80.6% from the free throw line.
That was impressive.
After his 65.9% in his rookie season, that tells you that he can improve as a shooter, that he's ready, that his shooting stroke isn't bad. That's always like the predictor when you're looking at college players. If they can't shoot and you're saying, oh, he's going to be a really good shooter, and then you look and he's a 54% free throw shooter, you're like, no, it's never going to happen. Like, he doesn't have it in him to be better at that. And, again, he shot 54.5% from the field, like a 3.5% increase. That's spectacular. The 32% from 3 is okay, because it came on like half as many shots as he shot the year before. So you need him to get better and to like grow. But we're talking about a guy who went from like an effective field goal percentage of 47.7 to 53.3. He was much more efficient this year. And I will guarantee you, if I go back and look, it took 40 games for him to find his niche with this team. Yeah. If you go back and you take away that first 40 games, his I'd almost be like, I can look, but like, I bet you his splits say that he was a much better player in January, February, March, and April than he was in October, November, and December.
He's been compared to this guy often, but I mean, look at. I just wanted to take a quick look at it. Look at the way Marcus Smart started his career, and I'm not saying he's going to be Marcus Smart, but he has those same type of intangibles when you talk about defensively. And then Marcus Smart has worked his way into being, a kind of a reliable scorer. Once again, not saying Davion's going to start or get those type of minutes or those opportunities, but sometimes it takes guys like that a minute to find their role and their niche in this league and then excel at it.
Kyle Lowry is the other guy.
I think Marcus is my third favorite player in the entire league. I love that dude.
A lot.
He do.
He flop a lot.
I love Marcus
I can't
Smart.
believe they be giving him calls.
I love Marcus Smart though.
I do.
He took a straight bump one game where he he didn't even get touched. He just took a flat back right onto the to the mat and didn't get a call. I was like, oh, Marcus, that's my guy
Marcus,
though.
I
love Marcus Smart. We'll come back. We'll talk more Kings basketball with James Ham. Phone lines open for you as well, 916-909-1320. Stilo and KC brought to you by Sky River Casino here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
All right, something good happened, and they're waving the flags now. They have them, and they're waving them around.
That's funny.
They foul a lot in this league.
Yeah.
I think so. You know what EuroLeague is, James?
EuroLeague.
For basketball.
Yeah, so they start out, I believe, like you have your standard league that you're in. So like Sasha's in the Greek league. And then after that, you do go to Eurobasket and you start playing in like major tournament play against a bunch of other teams. And your league kind of goes away. So it is kind of like a little bit like Champions, but I think it's like more teams play. I'm not sure. But you go outside of your country and start playing teams in other leagues where like he does play in the Greek league. So yeah, Alex in the chat, you brought up Drew Timme, 61.6% field goal percentage, 63% from the line. My point isn't that. My point is that Drew Timme shot 61.1% from the free throw line as a freshman, 63.2% from the free throw line as a senior, and his 3-point percentages just kept getting worse. It's the correlation between 3-point percentage and free throw shooting, not field goal percentage. Drew Timme scores a bunch at the rim. And I think Drew Timme's a really, really talented scorer. I don't think he fits in the league in the same way that like Frank the Tank didn't fit in the league. And Frank Kaminsky was even a better 3-point shooter. But I don't mind Drew Timme. I think he's like there is a world where Drew Timme actually makes it in the NBA. I think it's a pretty tough one. If he could have got better as a 3-point shooter, if he could have been a 38% 3-point shooter his senior year, he's a late first round pick. The fact that he shot 16% means that he just never extended his range out.
Drew Timme was in college forever.
It was only 4 years. I think the difference is that he looked the same way as an 18-year-old as he did as a 22-year-old, and he probably will look the same as a 37-year-old.
I think he got a COVID year too, didn't he?
I don't know.
I think all those guys got
21, 22, 23.
Extra year.
Well, he could petition and go back for one more year.
I think that's
at this point.
That's what.
But I don't think he's going to. Mm-hmm. Well, that and those guys are doing. They go back for an extra year. Like they can go get their masters during that time. I think it's helped with higher education.
And all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Perry Ellis, how many years did he play? Was he just 4? Or was it like the 7 that it felt like?
8 years.
Yeah, who's the one dude? There's one guy who's
McAdoo
like
is doing
7
that
years.
right now at North Carolina. He's been there for a minute.
Sarah is very fired up over all of this, by the way.
Well,
you're not on this thread.
Well.
For some, I think
what else is new?
I think she texted the wrong thread. She texted me and Jake, and I think she meant to text me and you, but she is really fired up over Davion not playing.
Really?
No excuse, all caps.
She was pissed off.
Matt Kim, you keep asking. My Premier League team, I've said this a bunch of times. My son is a huge Man U fan because his first soccer coach that coached him for a long time in competitive was a Man U fan. And so I support, like, me and my son watch games together. We watch other games outside of Man U, but Man U.
I'm gonna try again next year, Jesse.
So
pick a different team.
Sarah just said, "Sorry, Jake. Thought this was Damien and Kenny."
No, you can watch Kenny, but don't pick Tottenham. Tottenham sucks.
We're off Tottenham?
Yeah, I'm not rocking with them either. They're useless. I won't pick another team, but they're useless.
Damn.
Tottenham.
Yeah.
They'll never win anything.
See, my sons have my son has all of his friends. They all have their own team. So, like, one is Dortmund, and then one is Tottenham. He has a friend in Man City.
Isn't LeBron's team in the Premier League?
LeBron's Liverpool.
They got Nike, right?
Yeah. Yeah, go over there, dude. I made a mistake trying to get you root for Tottenham. That team sucks.
Luka Garza. Yeah, like, even Luka Garza, Uncle Looney. I compare Luka Garza to, like, Adam, who is it? Morrison. I was gonna say, who's the guy who looks like Jesus? The league learned that you can't expect guys like that to come in and be like 27 point per game guys. Like, even the big kid is it Purdue who had the what is his name? He's gonna have a tough time making it in the league. I don't know if he will at all. Zach Edey. Yeah. Wolverhampton. I've watched a lot of the Wolves play this year. I don't know.
Do the one, Casey, along with James Ham. James, I can't remember if we talked about this on Monday, but given the conversations of Kelly Oubre and the different, Dylan Brooks and the different ideas for, free agency coming up in July, would you, given what this team was offensively and given what this team was defensively, would you sacrifice any part of their offense to ensure that they're better defensively next year?
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be the question. Can you find a guy who shoots 38% from three who can play better defense than, like, a guy like Harrison Barnes?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the question. Because like I look at this team and, like, the point guard position is locked up. You understand what their point guard position. They'll bring in a third point guard, a third, like, quote unquote guard, like what they did this year with Matthew Dellavedova.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it will be Delly again. I would say probably not. He'll probably be on the coaching staff if he wants to be. But then you look at the shooting guard position and you have, like, I think a perfect combination, like yin and yang, like the Monk Herter combination. The fact that Herter can go play some three, the fact that Monk can go play some one, like, that combo is really dangerous. You got the high flyer, the energy guy, and then what really in the regular season was an elite 3-point shooter. Shot 41% from three on almost 7 threes a game. Like, that is a great combo. Then you get past that position and you start, like, looking at these combinations of players and they don't work. There's not enough of certain things. So, like, if you came back into next season and Harrison Barnes and Keegan Murray are your starting forwards, that's fine, but you can't have non-factors like KZ Okpala, or even, like, if Kessler Edwards can't take some magical leap and be, like, a strong rotational player, you have to have that type of player. It's why I bring up a guy like Kelly Oubre, because this team can't survive another season without that player. If you can somehow wrestle Jeremy Grant out of Portland, that's a different type of player. And if whether Harrison's gone or you're doing a 3-forward rotation and he's part of that, like, that's fine. Harrison Barnes can be part of this team, but you need something else. And if you bring over Sasha Vezenkov, okay, you still need the athletic guy. You still need that crazy super athlete. And am I intrigued by, like, a bench lineup that has Sasha and Trey Lyles at the 4 and the 5? Sure. Like, I think that they both can defend. They can go back and forth, and like one of them can take the bigger guy, and you can actually get some switchability out of that. But you're not going to be great defensively. You still need like Kessler Edwards times 10 at that small forward position along with those guys. That's not going to work. You have to have these combinations of players.
Surprise, surprise, James. I obviously said no, I would not become a lesser offensive team to become a better defensive team. And that's not necessarily just because of offense. It's because of this offense. It made you dynamic. It was that good. It was that potent that I don't know if I want to, maybe it's a little dramatic, but I'd almost protect that at all costs. Like you were that good on the offensive end. I'd try to bring in somebody like we talk about, Kelly Oubre, who's at this point in his career, probably even a better defender than Harrison Barnes, but can still give you, that same offensive explosion compared to, I just threw a name out there, and I love his grit. I love how he gets after it on the defensive end, but like somebody like Isaac Okoro, like I think that would take away too much of your dynamic ability on the offensive end just to get better on the defensive end, even though he's a really good defensive ball player, and it could absolutely help. They have to get better at defense, but I would try to find a little bit more of a happy medium.
Yeah, I mean, and I get what you're saying. Basically, Okoro, and I've always been a huge Okoro fan. Like coming into the draft, I thought Okoro would be much better than he has been as a pro. He just has not kind of found his way, and he plays on a team where you're really going to have a tough time getting a bunch of shots. They've got two like really high volume scores at the guard positions. They've got a high volume score at the power forward position. There's a lot of mouths to feed in that situation. And they're not a West Coast offense where the ball's hopping and moving all over the place all the time. They're more of a conventional East Coast offense where, they might be fast, but still you're going to do plenty of iso ball and stuff like that. The guys you're talking about, I'm with you. Like the Matisse Thybulles, the Okoros. Like, I don't know that I want to take that big of a step back offensively. I think you still need someone who can score. They've got to be smart about it, which is one of the concerns about Oubre. Would he just be like Dylan Brooks, but just not as, except for not a guy who yells at, LeBron James and causes you to get destroyed by LeBron James. So can you find someone who's just different in that position? Sure. And then I think like the happy medium, it might be a guy like Kessler, or if you can't get a guy who's 10 times Kessler, can you get one that's 5 times? Can you get one that's like that, but just, substantially more seasoned? Or can Kessler come along because he does have a little bit of an offensive game and he's a really good defender, but you got to find those.
The guy I'm in love with as far as what they want to do this offseason is Cam Johnson. I think if you can, I'd overpay because I think they're trying to say Cam might get like 17 to 18.
Man said he was in love with Cam Johnson.
On the basketball court.
We've seen
on the basketball court. We don't need the media.
I know what we're talking about.
It could be a Cam thing. Like he really likes Cam Reddish as well.
Hey, Cam Reddish, he is a free agent here. Roster depth. But Cam Johnson, I think he checks all those boxes, right? Like I think he's a good enough shooter. I think he can help you on the defensive end. I'm not saying he's a lockdown, but he's not a turnstile either. And he's young. Like I think there's versatility to his game too. He's not just 3-and-D. Like he can get to the basket. He's a bit of a slasher as well. I think I paid him some money. And a lot of people say the Nets aren't going to let Cam Johnson go.
Yeah.
Well, they've got $1 trillion they're still paying Ben Simmons. They've got a lot of money they're paying Mikal Bridges. They got a lot of money they're paying Finney Smith. And you're going to pay Finney Smith. I don't know if Finney makes exactly $20 million, but you're going to pay Mikal,
he's at like
Cam,
13,
and Finney Smith to all play the same position. And you're paying Joe Harris. Joe Harris make a nice little change of money too.
Yeah.
So I think they would want to keep Cam, but I don't know if that would be the best thing for them to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. Like Cam Johnson is sort of the prototypical guy. He shot 40% from 3 this year. If 15.5 points combined between his 2 stops. He doesn't block shots. That's something that I still think you need. He's, again, we keep talking about this with Keegan. He's more of a power forward that plays small forward than a small forward that plays power forward. And you need to make sure that Keegan can stick at the small forward. If Keegan can stick the small forward spot, it opens up everything for the Kings, because there are a lot more players that can play that power forward spot. Even like the Kings, I don't think you want to go into next season as your starting power forwards being, Sasha and Trey Lyles. Like, to me, that's a little risky, but you still are going to have plenty of scoring, plenty of rebounding, plenty of things that you don't have right now. But that would be if Keegan can slide over and stay at that small forward spot. Yeah. And that's going to take a lot of work from him.
Yeah.
Do you want to have the yearly discussion about Ben Simmons?
Wouldn't touch Ben Simmons with a 10-foot pole, no. Sorry.
12 foot.
12 foot. Maybe a 14-foot pole.
14. All right.
Yeah, whatever the pole vaulting pole is, that one. I'm not touching
the pole vaulting pole. I don't know how big the pole vaulting pole is.
I don't know either, but I'm not going in. And like, unfortunately, I kept saying, if you were able to put him in Sacramento and let him recover and let him get mentally right in obscurity, you would have been fine. But you didn't. You took him from the frying pan and into the fire. You took him from like the most violent sports fans that there are in the world in Philadelphia, and then you drop him into New York City where the bright lights. And
you dropped him off like an hour away.
Yeah, it's just too big. Like, it's too big. If you could have let him
the same market
recover himself, and go somewhere where everyone's not looking, he could have found himself again. But now we start talking about back issues and all that. Those are stress. Like, the injuries that I see from him now are stress related. Those are, you broke that kid. And like, if I'm the Kings, he's under contract for just this next year. And also the perfect fit for me. Like,
you got two left. You got 37 and 23, 24, and then you got 40 and 24, 25.
Oh, yeah.
So you got 77 left.
Yeah, no, not doing it. The guy
who got
who
$77 million for a dude who may not play basketball
ever again.
May not want to play basketball.
Yeah. I'd still say the guy that if the Kings are serious about taking this team from like a really cool story and a solid, 3, 4, 5, 6 team for the next 3 years, it's OG Anunoby. That's the guy for me that like takes his team.
So we've talked about that before. What's that look like to you? Like, because OG is obviously a trade acquisition. It's not a flat out signing.
Yep.
And you're sort of depleted with losing Harrison, unless Harrison wants to go to Toronto. That doesn't really play into this. So tell everyone you're trading Keegan Murray and we can start the conversation.
No, I mean, like, if the Kings aren't trading Keegan at all, like, everything, just being around them, they believe Keegan is going to be a star. Like, they still believe he's going to be a star. Like, they're convinced.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. Like, you can believe that if you want. Like, and I'm not going to say that that's not going to happen. I'm just saying, I don't know. The guy, like, somehow you'd have to figure it out. Like, it's going to cost you a ton as far as draft capital.
With Rashawn, and no, probably starts with your call to the Atlanta Hawks that you always reference and taking the protections off.
Yeah, you got to take the protections off. The
money starts with Rashawn, and then you're drafting a player this year that you're probably sending to Toronto.
Yeah, and then what other picks do you have to give up? Do you have to give up 26? Do you have to give up 28? And you're talking about a guy who averaged 16.8 points, 5 rebounds. So he's a solid rebounder for the position. The 1.9 steals is what makes him different. He's 38.7% from 3. Offensively, he's Harrison Barnes. Defensively, he's a game changer. He changes the entire culture of your defense. One player will change the entire culture of your defense. He can play any position. He can defend any single position on the court. And a guy that can switch 1 through 5 and be a lockdown just takes the pressure off of everybody else. He's, 6'7", 230, just a big, small forward. And I think he would be the absolute perfect fit. The other downfall to him is he's under contract. He's got he's under contract at $18.6 million next year, but he has a player option at $19.9 the year after that. There's no way he's playing for that money. And so you have to judge whether or not he's going to be worth it long term to give a massive contract to. And it's going to come in the same summer where you have to give Domantas Sabonis a massive contract. And so that's not easy. Like you're basically
Malik Monk.
Yeah. And sign Malik Monk. And so all of these things happen at one time. Now, again, what is Malik Monk worth on the open market? I'm not sure. And are you going to get value for him in Sacramento because he wants to stay with De'Aaron? He's still, again, he's going to be a early bird guy. So at that point, the early bird might be up to 12 or 13 million starting salary with 8% raises. That might be enough to retain him. Maybe it's not. Maybe he's like, hey, I'm going to go get 15 or 18 million somewhere else. But is he really a starting shooting guard, or is this like the perfect spot for him? Again, I would make the argument that he's better off being like Jordan Poole, Jordan Clarkson, and coming off the bench, and those guys make less money. So it is what it is. I mean, so whether he's going to get a substantial raise or not, I'm not sure.
Just for those who are unaware, OG Anunoby represented by Clutch Sports.
Okay.
Just putting it out there.
Get Fox.
OG Anunoby. That's
do what you do, Rich Paul. Get Fox's help.
Yeah.
Hey, there was an interesting question that, I think it was more of a statement that Damian mentioned earlier that turned into a question. We were talking about Monty McNair and him winning the Executive of the Year, where he was 16 months ago, at the trade deadline, and people just going crazy over the Tyrese Halliburton trade and where he's come to now, where he's, the best executive in the year by the award right now. And Damian, you talked about how you felt from day one, Monty was like, De'Aaron is the franchise. We will do the things necessary to build around him, but he's the guy, and he started to build around him. And I asked the question, I said, if everything was equal contract-wise with Halliburton and De'Aaron, do you think they still make the same decision?
Like now?
Just at that time. If at that time they were on the same contract, money wasn't an issue, but you knew you had to move on from one of them. I think he would. I agree with Damian. I think he would have went with Fox, but it's an interesting question.
Honestly, I don't know. Like, Halliburton is such a charming dude, and he's also like 3 years younger. And so, yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I mean, we're talking about like the shoulda, coulda, wouldas type stuff. Like, I think it's really interesting that, like I said at that time, like, extend Monty McNair right now. Like, he made a move that's so epically huge for your franchise that you have to let him see it through. Then you let him hire Mike Brown, extend him. Like, you just let him sign a coach for 4 years. Like, this is a moment where you need to match the salary, the contract years with your coach. They didn't do it. We get to, like, was it January? Late January is when they extended him finally, or early February. Like, I thought it was really interesting the way, like, a guy goes from basically almost being run out of the city for a trade and run out of the league by a lot of talking heads out there to a guy who's now executive of the year. And like, look,
Monty's a better man than I am, because I would have taken that trophy and given everybody the middle finger as I was holding it.
Including me.
JJ, all of you, right here. Yeah. Jalen, right there.
I was on board with this Sabonis swap, like, fully. I thought that was a crazy gamble that was worth it, because I like Sabonis as a player coming in. But like, the fact that he didn't move back in the draft and collect any assets, the fact that, he made one move as one trade and one true free agent acquisition in Malik Monk. Like, I kept saying there's not enough. Like, it proved out that he was right, but even still at the trade deadline, if you added some of the pieces, like, would you have been different? Would the playoffs have gone different? Could that first round have gone different if you had someone who was better fitted to as a backup center, or if you had someone that, like, could have stretched? I mean, Harrison Barnes played 8 minutes, 6 minutes in the final 2 playoff games. Like, that's what we kept talking about.
And Davion played about the same amount of minutes.
Yeah, you got to go get that guy. And again, not to, like, you don't think Mason Plumlee would have impacted the The offensive rebounding issue?
Our Lord and Savior. After watching what Kevon Looney did last night, no.
Our Lord and Savior.
Yeah, nobody.
Stopped.
Yeah.
I don't. Right. Our actual Lord and Savior may not have stopped Kevon Looney from getting those offensive rebounds.
I think that Monty McNair, like, he played it safe. He played it close to the vest, and it all worked out. And the injuries worked out. And I think he had a phenomenal season, and he's fully deserving of the award. Now he's got more work to do.
Mm-hmm.
He does.
My argument was he got the job, and an hour later, facetious, extended De'Aaron Fox when he didn't have to. And to me, that was a sign you're my guy, you're our guy, you're their guy. And I don't know that he went out to trade Tyrese Haliburton, but I think he knew as that season was progressing, Tyrese is probably my best trade asset.
Oh, totally.
And you hold on to it. You probably hold on to it for as long as you can until you can't hold on to it anymore. And thankfully, whatever the hell was going on with Philadelphia and Ben Simmons didn't materialize. And he talked to Indiana and got the deal for Domantas Sabonis. But my feeling is he had a vision for this team from jump. That's my feeling, is he knew what the vision of this team was, and he executes things very quietly. He doesn't tell us what he's thinking. He's not, or he doesn't lie to us like Danny Ainge does. Oh, we tried. We tried to trade him. We tried to do this. We tried to move this pick. We tried to do that. Danny Ainge always got something to say after the fact. Always.
Yeah.
I knew he was going to be special.
Yeah.
Danny Ainge really is like LeBron. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop talking about the king like that.
I still believe that even though he won Executive of the Year and the Kings put up 40, that there were more wins there. There were more wins left on the table at the trade deadline. There were more wins left here and there. And whether, that's like, it's something that they'll learn. And yeah, like people in the chat, yes, they'll go out and they'll make deals this summer, right? They'll go out and they'll try to fill some of these voids this summer. But I still think that some of these things were sitting there. Maybe they weren't. But like when you hear that they were close on Jared Vanderbilt, when you hear that they're close on Matisse Thybulle, these are things like people keep saying, well, if you really had just a long guy to chase Steph Curry around.
Well, I don't think that's Monty McNair's fault, though.
No, I'm not putting blame. I mean, I think he did a great job.
Why did our voice just get really high?
I don't know.
I don't understand. Yeah. Both of us did it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know. I just believe Danny Ainge should be investigated. Can't get over that. Watching Jared Vanderbilt, watching him play last night, watching what all of those Utah Jazz, it's like, what the hell?
Malik Beasley hiding on the bench. Like, I don't know if he's going to play in the series, but there's your
Crazy.
3-point shooter that you had. And again, that's not a guy that, like, I think the Kings will kick the tires on just because of personality issues and stuff. But still, I think that there are plenty of things that the Kings can do here to get better. And I also think there are plenty of things they could have done at the deadline that could have helped.
Well, there is certainly room to get better. There's going to be changes on this roster. I think that's one thing we really like. There's, even if it's not, not something dramatic like a Domantas Sabonis acquisition. Like we really like Terrence Davis. Like it's probably tough if you're really trying to improve. Like Terrence had a lot of DMPs this year. I don't know if he's on, where he would even fit in terms of like Sacramento's things that they need to focus on this offseason. But we've got all offseason to talk about it, and we've got